Hello everyone. Welcome to the podcast episode today. I'm really excited to introduce Jason Cochran. He's my guest today. Jason is co-founder and psychologist at iAspire Business. I'm so glad to have you here today, Jason. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Andra. I'm doing great today, and I'm excited to learn and share with your listeners today.
Oh, that's great. So just get into the middle of the things. First of all, I wanted to ask you to tell us a little bit about your story, about your life story, how you really have chosen your job and got into your actual current business at iAspire.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I'll be happy to share. It's kind of interesting. I knew that I wanted to be a psychologist when I was 10 years old, funny enough. Even though I couldn't say the word psychologist then, I knew that I was interested in people and choices that they make. And it was because of an event that happened in my life when I was 10 that led me down that path. My grandfather, whom I was very, very close to, he committed suicide when I was 10.
Okay.
And that was very hard for me to understand as a 10-year-old boy, because in my eyes, my grandfather was someone who was happy, who looked like he enjoyed life. He made that decision, and was struggling with some things that I wasn't aware of. And so after that event, I just started asking my parents all kinds of questions, about, why someone would do something like that. And long story short, anytime there was a psychology class that was an elective in high school, I was signing up for it and I was taking it because I knew that that was the path that I was on and what I was interested in, and that I wanted to try and help people find their purpose in the world and their identities to guide their life so that they can contribute to the world in their own unique way.
Oh, that's a really sad story, but it influenced your life and showed you from a really early age what you wanted to do in your life, and that's great. Because there's so many people out there who are maybe 30, 40 and do not have a vision what they want to do with their life, and that happened really early with you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it was an event that absolutely shaped my life and helped me understand how I can try and contribute. So that's how I became a psychologist. And then as time went on, I got connected with many other people who were like-minded, who were very passionate about trying to help people grow holistically. So not only, finding worth in their jobs, but finding worth in themselves as a person, and understanding their values and their passions in life. And as I got connected with those people, they end up being partners who have started this company together, and that we're on this journey together of trying to help organizations have healthy cultures, because we think that's where it all starts, not only for the organization, but for people. A good part of what people do and how they find their identity is the work that they do, often with their employer. And so there's a lot of research that's coming out now that's talking about the importance of workplace culture, and that it needs to be a core part of the business plan, just like any other strategic plan that you have, as part of the company, whether it's around operations, sales, go-to-market strategy. A culture strategy now is just as important, not only for the organization, but for the people to feel connected and to feel meaning behind the work that they do every day.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, what was between you've graduated psychology and you've started the business? Was there something in between that two phases of your life? Have you done different, qualifications, or did you gather experiences from other workplaces? How did you proceed?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so once I got my degrees and became a psychologist, I really focused on working in schools and became an educational psychologist.
Okay.
So a lot of my work there was focused on helping school districts come up with systems of inclusion,
Mm-hmm.
especially that may have learning challenges, making sure that there's resilient classrooms, and basically removing obstacles so that all kids can learn at their very best and do their best. And what I found, in doing that kind of work is that those kinds of things are also really important in the workplace, not just in school buildings, but that it's really important to differentiate the learning and
Yeah.
development opportunities for people when they work, and that millennials and Gen Z, they'll bolt. I mean, they'll leave an employer if that's something that's not being provided to them. I think that's a major shift now generationally. Is it used to be, employers could say you should be happy with your paycheck and your benefits,
Yeah.
and now millennials and Gen Z are saying that's not good enough. You need to provide me opportunities to grow as a person, to stretch, to be challenged. And those are things they expect to receive, just like a paycheck or just like benefits. Otherwise, they'll leave and they'll find it elsewhere.
Oh, that's interesting. I really like your journey. It's very fascinating to me. And because you've started in early preparation school and kind of tested and evolved certain strategies and apply them also to workplace, it's very interesting, that transition for me to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of odd to go from working in an educational setting to now working primarily with businesses, but the parallels there are absolutely remarkable. And there's definitely things that I think both of those sectors can and have learned from each other in order to have strong processes in place for developing their people.
Okay. You've told me at the beginning that your grandfather influenced your working path and your life path. Are there also other two people you would mention who influenced your life and decision you've taken in your job or in your personal life? Some kind of mentors or yes?
Yeah, I love that question. For me, I am very lucky, and that's not lost on me. I grew up with two parents
Mm-hmm.
in my house, a mom and a dad, who loved each other very much, and loved me and my sisters very much. And so I was very, very lucky that that's not the experience a lot of people get to have. And so my mom and dad were absolutely instrumental in shaping who I am, and my values today. My dad, he really taught me about work ethic. He was an extremely hard worker his entire life, and he very loyal to his employer, and showed up every single day and gave his best, regardless of how he felt. So work ethic was something that my dad taught me and instilled in me. My mom was a very values-driven person. Um, she was very, very strong, and the principles and values that she believed in, number one of which was honesty, she lived it. It wasn't just something that she talked about. She lived it. And I got to see her when she was in difficult situations at times. She didn't waver from her values. She was very steadfast in making sure that she followed through on who she was. And so those are some things she passed on to me, is the idea of, do you know what your personal values are? And are you living those out? So that whenever you find yourself in situations where you have to make split-second decisions, that if those things are written on your heart and you know your identity,
Mm-hmm.
then you know how to go about making a decision in those circumstances. So that's what my mom taught me. And then lastly, my wife, Rachel, she has taught me a great deal. And the thing that I would say she's taught me the most is, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Yeah, I was one of those people in school that would procrastinate. on projects, I'd put everything off until the last minute because I was always worried about failing or about something not being exactly perfect. And what my wife, Rachel, has taught me is that's okay. You don't have to be perfect. That being perfectly imperfect is who I am and who all of us are, and that we all have imperfections, but that we want to be seen and that we want to be heard for who we are, that we can be authentic. Authentic's a word that's used a lot now. So that's what she's taught me, is that it's okay to not be perfect, to be who I am, and for my uniqueness, nerdiness, and silliness, that's how I was made, and that's what I'm here on earth to use as my gifts and talents to try and help make the world a better place and help other people find their true version of themselves.
Wow, really great role models you had in your life who shaped who you are and your job and your personality. I really appreciate that you're sharing the stories here with us, and want to say thank you. Now, if you agree, I want to switch to the next question I want to put. I want to ask you to give a little bit more details about what you are doing at iAspire. What is your activity there? And if you want to share some insights, you're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to share what we do at iAspire. So it's going to be no surprise. So we've talked a lot about values together already and how important that is. That's what we do at iAspire. We are a culture platform. We're a technology company that has a culture platform. But what that culture platform does is we help organizations define their values to where they can actually be measured. And then we support people living those values out by delivering coaching experiences that are virtual and also delivering employee experiences and activities that help them grow in that area. So for instance, if a company came to us and said humility is one of our core values, we work with them on defining that so that everyone in the organization knows what that means to live out the value of humility. And then we deliver through our platform, we deliver experiences and activities that help people grow in humility.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so even though we're a culture platform, for us, we really focus on those values because what we found is that's what really moves the needle on improving business outcomes, because you're focusing on helping people understand who they are, and it helps them to make everyday decisions. If they know what humility means in the organization and they understand what that means in terms of how they conduct themselves whenever meetings are held, how they interact with clients and customers, then that has a huge impact on the bottom line. What we have often found is that organizations have very well-written values that look great on a poster. But then if we ask them, if we were to ask people in the organization, what are your values? We'd be lucky to get maybe 2 out of 10 people that know what the values are. And then if we take it a step further and say, do you know what that value means in terms of how you act or how you behave? You'd be lucky if you'd get 1 out of 10 that understands that. So at our core, that's what we are, a technology company that is a culture platform, but we go about helping organizations structure and design and deliver a clear culture through their values and help people grow in those areas.
Okay. And if you are looking into the future, what would you say are your overall goals with that company? What do you want to achieve? How do you want to grow?
Yeah, I would say our overall goal is that we want every organization we work with to have culture turn into their competitive advantage, that they become a destination employer. And by that, I mean that when people sign up to come work for Acme Corporation or whomever it is, the people want to work there because of the culture, and that they leave because it feels like family. And that would be like walking out on their family. So that's our goal with every client we work with, is to help turn their culture into their competitive advantage, and so that it's something that reflects their brand, so that their employees love it and stay and give their best contributions. But then also on the flip side, so that their own customers also see how much their people love working there, and that's reflected in the interactions that the employees have with their customers. So that's our overall goal that we have for each organization.
Okay. One question: do you also give certain certifications to the companies that they are culture-driven companies, so that they can show that to potential employees in order to attract them to come to work in their company? Or how do people know that those companies are culture-driven?
I love that question, Andra. Yes, we do. We do have a certification. We call it a certified growth culture, and it's an actual seal that we give to organizations when they're able to affirm the 7 attributes that we have of a healthy growth culture in the organization. And so then what they do is they use that seal on their websites, on their marketing and promotional materials. That's kind of like the Batman signal that goes out in the sky and says, to people, we are an organization that focuses on having a growth culture that's going to help you grow as a person. And because of that, people want to come here and work, and they don't often leave. So yes, we do have a certified growth culture seal that we give to them, so that they can use that to attract the right talent, but that it also helps them retain their talents as well.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. We've talked about the goals for the future you have with your company, but if you look to the past, which obstacles do you had with the company so far? Which were the obstacles you faced and thought, well, how to get over that, how to manage that better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, the biggest obstacle, often comes when you're going to market, with a new product, especially in the technology industry, is trying to figure out who your ideal client profile is. Right? And trying to figure out, okay, is it specific to an industry? Is it specific to a certain size? And so that for us over the last year and a half has been what we have risen to the challenge of understanding better and overcoming the obstacle is, yes, culture might be important for every organization in the world, but who are the ones that are the best match for us and that we are the best match for them? And the only way to find that out is, to have conversations with people and, to test out, different pitches, find what the market is saying they are willing to pay for, what they're not willing to pay for. And so the biggest obstacle is just simply, trying to find who the ideal client profile is, so that you can kind of find that niche market that really hums well for you. And that's what we are currently in the process of finding.
Okay, that's evolution all the time, to adapt to the market and to see what's changing, what people are demanding, and so on. Yeah, that's really an obstacle in many businesses, I guess.
Absolutely. And for us, what helps us is we are a lean and an agile team. And so, when COVID hit, we were able to pivot because all of a sudden culture became a very hot topic because of this question of, now that more people are working remotely or working from home, how do you continue having that connectivity? How do you go about still having them feel connected to their work, to their coworkers, to their managers or supervisors, to the overall mission of the company? And so a lot of the conversations that we have now are around that topic, and that wasn't something that happened before COVID. And so that's just a perfect example of how we, started to pivot and kind of steer into those kind of conversations to talk about how we help organizations still have healthy cultures, even when their people are spread out and working from home.
Oh, that's really challenging, I guess, to adapt and to see how to help people in those unsacred times and unpredictable times. But I guess you're doing a great job there. Then I want to ask you also which lessons you have learned from your job. We talked about the obstacles, but now I want to switch to the lessons.
Yeah, I would say some lessons that I've learned is how important relationships are. I knew this in life, but even in the business world, it is absolutely critical to have the right relationships with the right people. And we've certainly seen that be the case through COVID. A good amount of our business comes through referral partners, partners who we trust, who are additional eyes and ears in the market, and will say, when they're talking with someone, hey, you know what, you should speak with iAspire, because I think they have a solution that can help you with some problems you're having with your culture right now. So I think that's been a major lesson that's been learned, is we're seeing just how important those relationships are. And those take time. Those aren't things where you just meet somebody and have one conversation, and then all of a sudden you're referring, clients, back and forth. It takes an intentional effort over time, and you have to build that trust. And the way you build the trust is by following through on who you are and your commitments, and delivering on the things that you've spoken about with them. So definitely relationships has been a lesson learned. I think another one for us has been, and this is something that Patrick Lencioni talks about in the 5 dysfunctions of a team. He talks about the importance of healthy conflict within teams, that it's important for there to be psychological safety, so that everyone feels like they can speak up to say, hey, I'm not sure we should go this direction. Here would be some of my concerns. And we've been really intentional about developing our own culture in that way. And it's been very helpful for us in terms of a lot of major decisions that we've made, and our ability to pivot whenever we've needed to pivot, when things like COVID happen. And then I think the last lesson, and this one's deeply personal for me, as we spoke about earlier, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Another lesson I've learned through my teammates is that you don't have to be perfect to start sharing something, right? If you have ideas, go ahead and start sharing them, even if you don't have it fully fleshed out. Don't worry about speaking up. Don't worry that you have to have all the answers. That it's okay, to not have the answers all the time, and to not feel like you have to be perfect. And my hope is that we have a lot more organizations out there that can foster that mentality of the psychological safety, because that's when the creativity and the innovation really comes out in people. Is when they feel like they can be their unique selves, and then they start sharing their unique ideas and their unique perspectives of the world and how to solve problems. And if you don't have psychological safety, most of the time they're going to keep those thoughts to themselves. They're not going to share it because they're worried about what their teammates might say to them. They might be worried about what their manager or supervisor might say if they don't fall in line. And so I think those are the 3 major lessons that I've learned, is the importance of not trying to be perfect. You don't have to be. that healthy conflict is a good thing for teams, and that most of all, the relationships that you build are extremely important. And I think the organizations that are going to come out stronger through this current pandemic are the ones who understood the importance of relationships and already had heavily invested in those.
Okay, that's really interesting and to keep in mind, because those lessons can apply also to other people and other situations. I find this question always really interesting to put to people because it's a great inspirational source. I want to ask you also if someone wants to step into your footsteps and to follow your path, which recommendations do you have for that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I'd recommend is find people that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always mean that they're your close friends or your best friends. They can be people who might be more of like a mentor of someone that maybe you haven't met before, but will give you an unfiltered view and perspective on things that you bring to them. I think that's really important to keep yourself honest, is to make sure you surround yourself with people who just don't always say, yes, you're right, but they challenge your thinking. You know, that's the only way as people that we stretch and grow, is when we surround ourselves with people who have different opinions, back those up and challenge us to think in different ways. So if someone were to step in my shoes, I'd say that's, first and foremost, one of the most important things is to make sure you align yourself with people that are going to give you an honest perspective of who you are or how they see you in the world, so that you have someone you can trust to bounce things off of. The other thing I would share, and this comes from my background as a psychologist, one of my major professors, he taught me the importance of 2 words when it comes to social science research. Those 2 words are, it depends. And what he meant by that is, it's really easy sometimes when you look at research in social science, whether it's sociology or psychology, and come to conclusions that because this is the outcome for 90% of people in the study, to think that that's a hard and fast rule, but it's not. People are unique, and that's why social science can be challenging sometimes, is yes, we may come up with some general rules, but every single human being that's ever walked the face of the earth is completely unique. And you never know their circumstances they've been through. You never know the things that are on their heart or their mind at any given moment. And so it's always important to remember it depends. When you think in terms of social science research, that everybody's context and the situations that they are in life are different.
Okay, we talked so far about recommendations you would give to persons and lessons you've learned so far, but if we would summarize everything to one unique ability you think you have that has helped you to become successful.
Adaptability.
Okay.
So a little bit about me and my personal story right now. My wife and I had twins on May 14th. So just a few months ago, in the middle of the pandemic.
Oh.
Yes. And these are our kids, 3 and 4 for us. So we're very blessed. All 4 boys, all underneath the age of 6.
Okay.
So thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. And the most important thing is everybody's healthy and they're happy. But my goodness, talk about having to adapt very quickly, already adapting because of COVID and what that has done. in terms of work environment, and adjusting my schedule, and then having the next wave, which is having newborn twins and adjusting the schedule too. And then our oldest, he's doing e-learning from home now instead of being in school from the pandemic. So that's why I say adaptable is I'm not perfect when it comes to adaptability. But I just try to give myself grace every day and say I'm doing the best I can, and know that I am, and so that it's okay. Just keep adapting. Life is always going to change. Like who I am, or who I was rather, back in February before the pandemic hit, I'm a different person now. Our life has changed a lot since then. And so I've had to adapt and cope. So I would say that is probably what I see as my strongest skill, is whatever life throws at me. I was lucky enough in life to have a lot of protective factors as a kid growing up, like parents that loved me, that gave me, the things that I needed. And because I had those things, it's helped me become resilient, and adaptable whenever things like this happen. So I'd say adaptability would probably be my top skill, or at least the one that I need the most right now.
Okay, that's great. The next question will remind you of Keith. He suggested me to put you that question, and I will just go into it and say, if we were talking 1 year from now, what would you think we will be talking about?
I love that question. And Keith, I know you're going to be listening. Thank you for that awesome question. And also thank you for introducing me to Andra, to have the opportunity to be with her today and learn from her. I love that question, Andra.
Me too.
I'm going to get out my crystal ball to try and predict the future. And I think based off of conversations I'm having with executives right now, I would say a year from now, we are going to see a lot more companies that stay with a remote work environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's going to be challenges that arise from that we're already seeing. And again, I think it comes back to culture. Culture is about people being able to connect to the organization, connect to the work they do, and also, just as importantly, is connect with the people. And so the big question a year from now that hopefully we have answers to, and we're starting to do better, is if a lot of us are working from home and we don't have that time to talk around the cooler in the break room, or we aren't seeing each other at social gatherings or each other's houses, what have we discovered that still gives us that connectivity to our team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that we are still living out our culture and living out our values. So I would think a year from now, what we're talking about is how, whether it's iAspire, whether it's other solutions in the market, that organizations now will be investing heavily in their culture strategy and how to keep their people connected to the organization, connected to the work they're doing, and connected to their people.
Okay, that's really interesting. I also guess that this will go in that direction, and not only on the workplace but also in personal life. How do we manage to keep relationships, to maintain relationships as we did when we could meet personally, go out, go to events or other things. Those things we will rather miss, I guess.
Absolutely. And Andra, if you have some tips, I would love to hear some tips that you have too, because I don't have all the answers in this area, but I certainly want to learn. And so that's something I'm excited to learn from you, are some tips and strategies that you might have for how we help accomplish that.
Okay, I will keep that in mind, and will be searching for and thinking about some kind of tips or tricks or solutions that may come up, and will certainly share them with you. And I'm really happy to see your feedback.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Really. And if people from the audience or people who are listening to that podcast want to connect with you, where can they find you online? Social media, website, email, whatever you want to share, you're welcome.
Yeah. LinkedIn is where I'm most active. So look for Jason Cochran. My last name is spelled Cochran. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn, hearing their stories, their backgrounds. So absolutely through LinkedIn. Also, our website at iAspire is iAspire.io. And you can find out more information about our why in the world and what we do there. So those would be the two that I'd recommend. If you do want to reach out to me through email, my email is Jason, JASON, at iAspireapp.com.
Okay. If you send me the links and email address, I can add them in the description of that podcast so that people can get in touch directly with you if they have a question or want to know more information about your activity.
I'll be sure to get that to you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, this was the podcast. Thank you, Jason, for sharing your story. It was so interesting to hear what you've learned, your entire journey, your path into what you're becoming the person of today. And I'm really glad, and thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed the discussion too.
Thank you for having me, Andra. It was a pleasure to be on and an honor to contribute, and appreciate what you're doing in the world to give people a voice to talk about their stories and the important work that they do.